Donald Trump last night, of course, taking a swipe at his opponents ahead of several key states. Now, by the way, guys, tomorrow, you got to vote in D.C., Wyoming. I think that D.C. is interesting. We'll see who the elites really want because they'll be voting. And then, of course, the biggie is next Tuesday. You have 5 states heading to the polls, and the winner-take-all states. Everyone's talking about it. They're fighting over it, Ohio and Florida. So what can we expect? Let's hash it out right now. Jillian, Melchior, Eboni Williams, Van Hipp, and Ron Meyer with us. Ron Meyer, the next, between tomorrow and Tuesday, how's the landscape going to change?
It probably won't change very much. You know, D.C., I hear it's trending towards Trump. I mean, Rubio may have a shot. Northern Virginia went for Rubio, so maybe D.C. would go for Rubio. You know, there's Guam tomorrow. Certainly Guam, if we're looking at island nations, Rubio has done pretty well there so far. But Super Tuesday, it's looking like a lot of Trump, except for in Ohio. Obviously, Kasich's polling well. And then Rubio is starting to trend up, it looks like, a little bit in Florida. But what he's going to need the not Trump vote to unify behind him in Florida in order to pull this thing off. And that's what he has to do. That's what he's trying to help with Kasich in Ohio. Then Kasich turned around and slapped Rubio, and it didn't go along with it. So it's been an interesting day.
Yeah, the diss was Kasich said, listen, I don't need you to help me win Ohio, and I won't help you lose Florida. Ooh. So that was really a tough one. But Van Hipp, I guess we've seen a couple of polls be off somewhat. We've seen a few upsets, particularly on the Democratic side. Is there any kind of sliver of hope, and I know Marco Rubio fans watching the show will say, of course there is, that he can really make it over the finish line first in his home state?
There are 1 or 2 polls that show it tightening. Maybe I think one poll has got a Trump lead down to 6 points. Another one's got it down to 8 points. I think one of Marco Rubio's big challenges, though, is this. Even if he does close that gap, Charles, the problem is that over 250,000 people have voted absentee, and it looks like Donald Trump is going to get the lion's share of those absentee votes, just as he's done in other states. But I also think Missouri and North Carolina are going to be key states to watch, too. The race is tightened in those states. That's why you saw Phyllis Schlafly in Missouri today. And if I were Donald Trump, I would send Ben Carson to North Carolina. That's a proportional state. It's not winner take all. Right. But Ted Cruz is making a race of it in North Carolina.
You know, and that's the interesting thing, guys. To me, if Ted Cruz could have talked Rubio of getting out, he probably would win North Carolina and Missouri. As it stands now, we're not sure that, you know, particularly Missouri, there's not a lot of polling there. You would have to assume Donald Trump is leading. What do you think? How do you think it's going to work?
I got to agree with Van on that point about North Carolina. That's my home state. And North Carolina is very interesting. I mean, so interesting that in 2008 it went blue for Barack Obama. Obviously, we saw it going red for Romney in 2012. So we are a very open-minded. Yes, it's the South, but we call it the New South. So yeah.
We've got the banking center there now. Charlotte.
Yeah, I actually, absolutely, you're right. Conventional wisdom would have you think that, you know, Cruz could really make a play there, and he very well still might. But I agree with Van. If Trump sends Ben Carson down there, you've got 2 sides of the same coin. I think most Republican North Carolina voters will really like that.
You see any upsets, Jillian?
Well, you know, I was in North Carolina a week ago, and I was at a Civitas convention. They took a straw poll. They actually had Cruz winning by a landslide. Now, there may be some bias there by who's attending, but I thought that was interesting.
Can I ask what part of North Carolina that was in?
Yeah, it was in Raleigh.
Okay.
First time there. It was beautiful.
Right. And see, when you talk about Mecklenburg County,
but they were
the base
from all
of Charlotte.
over.
Right. Okay, all over the place. It's going to be very interesting.
I thought it was fun. I'll be watching my home state of Wyoming. You know, we've got 1 or 2 delegates. I'm probably related to them. Might give them a call.
All right. Well, if you give them a call, that means Trump won't win.